Continuity. Oh, there we go. Menu. Beeper. Okay. So another thing, did you start? Okay. Another thing your meter can probably tell you is continuity in the case of the beeper. Okay. Oh, come on. Okay, let me change range. Beeper's on.
Try it now.
That's for farads. That's for capacitors. I don't want to do capacitors. Let's go back to that. And menu, short open. There we go. So it's now in a continuity test. Okay. Out of limits, not overloaded. Out of limits. You touch together, I have a reading. Okay. This is usually, it'll say in the manual of your meter, usually it's like 34 ohms resistance. If it's under that, it'll beep and tell you it has continuity. This is handy that if your head's stuck in a piece of machinery and you're trying to reach the contacts but can't see your meter, you can be going around going, do I have... That's weird. This is stops beeping when you have continuity instead of beeping when you have continuity. Oh, beep on open. Okay, so I probably have a... There's probably a beep on... Let's see. Beep on open. Oh, and this gives you a visual on this particular meter because it's got a screen, so it shows you open and closed. That's neat. The short open. Yeah. This is much more complicated than whatever meter you're probably going to get because we just looked it up and this is still a $580 meter. And I don't pull this one out very much because I usually don't need the extra digit of accuracy it gives. And I don't want to break it. That's for diodes. You're in capacitors. So this setting that Caden set it to, you can actually hook it up to a capacitor and it'll charge it through the leads and tell you how many farads, nanofarads, microfarads, farads, that it'll actually the capacity of the capacitor, which you can check against its specifications and see if it meets it. The other thing that position allowed you to do for the alternative was checking diodes. There we go. So now we got it so that open circuit, which shows you a little picture on this one. I doubt you'll ever get a meter that does this unless you have a reason to buy a high-tech one or working with electronics like computer circuit boards or something. You connect it and it beeps. Okay, and that's generally under, I believe it's 34 ohms. Your meter's instruction manual will tell you under what resistance it considers that continuity. That may not be good enough. Generally, it's good enough. If you're working high voltage, high current stuff, that's pretty much good enough. If you're working some super low current circuits that are low voltage, that might not be good enough. You might need less resistance than that in the circuit when it's closed to actually be considered a closed circuit. I think that about covers it for this one. Oh, the other one was, we'll go to volts DC. We have the hard line on the top and the dashed line on the bottom. So that's your symbol for DC voltage. I'm going to hook up again the positive and the negative side of the battery to see available voltage. Okay. 12.497, so we're at about 12.5 volts. That's interesting because this has been running for a while. 12.6 volts. Wait, 12.8. 12.8 volts is a completely charged battery. So this battery, although it was sitting here getting charged, was not completely charged. And it's been a few days since I've driven it, and there is some I can check parasitic draw with a current clamp, or by breaking in. If I was to disconnect the positive lead and that goes to the fuse box and put my meter in it, I could see how much draws in the car with it turned off, everything shut off, and me not in it. And if it's under 10 amps, I can move over to the 400 milliamp, which would bring me, if it was under an amp, and get an idea of how much draw there is. I could go to the fuse box, start pulling fuses, and find out when the draw goes away. Things like a mirror lamp for the vanity mirror on the passenger side, that's often a thing that somebody leaves on, or the switch goes bad and that light stays on, and that draws electricity. So you let the car sit for a few days and that'll just drain the battery. It could be the cigar lighter. That'll draw like 10 amps when it's in use, or more, 10-15 amps depending on the cigar lighter. But if that shorts out across its windings and stays powered up when the car's off, it could be drawing 3 amps or more and drain the car's battery in a matter of hours. So just things you can go looking for. And when you're working on vehicles, they're pretty easy to find what circuit the problem's on, because you find out there's excessive draw, and you can start pulling fuses until you find the circuit that has the problem. Oh, it's the cigar fuse. Now you got a choice: go track it all down, or just leave that out because you don't smoke, and don't use it as your power supply. In this particular car, I use it for charging on my phones and stuff, and for my cameras that are in the car. So it can, if I forget to unplug that from the cigar lighter, in about 3 days it'll drain the battery, sometimes less, because it's trying to power up a camera and it's leaving a charger powered up. I think that about covers that. I'll probably try and do another one where I open up the panel on my house and show you the voltages on the different phases on the house panel.